he should not eat. Who made that rule? And the thing that's interesting, the thing that's beautiful, the thing that's divine is God doesn't ask for our permission when he's making up his rules. And I want to say to you today, if God doesn't ask for our permission when he's making up his rules, surely it will be wise for us to learn God's rules. If someone believes that's true, maybe just throw in the comments, that's true. I want you to genuinely think about it. If God never checked in with you, if God never asked you, if God never said, hey, I need your permission. Hey, what are we going to do today? Hey, how do we make it happen? Hey, what's the way that I should make the law of gravity, make the apple drop on Sir Isaac Newton's head? Like if God never checked in with you before making his rules, a great question would be, should we discover and learn his rules? I'm interested in learning what you guys think. Because one of the things I've discovered is many people live life as though they are making up the rules. Many people live life as though the rules don't even matter. Many people live life in ways as though, yeah, one day we'll figure out the rules. I'm here to tell you that regardless of whether you're someone who said to yourself, one day I'll figure out the rules, regardless of whether you're someone who thinks, you know what, the rules don't matter, or whether you're someone who's thinking to yourself, you know what, I make the rules, with the slogans like YOLO, you only live once, and etc. that have become popular in this last decade. The reality is the rules are the rules. The law of gravity is the law of gravity. 7 days a week. And as my coach, Dr. Myron Golden, sometimes says, and twice on Sunday, right? The law of gravity is the law of gravity. You aren't going to change it because you disagree with it, okay? The law of inertia is what it is. The law of entropy is what it is. The law of polarity is what it is. When I say 2 plus 2 mathematically is equal to 4, guys, it is what it is. Someone throw in the comments, it is what it is. And here's the reality. If it is what it is, surely you should want to know what it is. Surely you should want to know how it works. Surely you should want to know how it works so you can work it rather than it only working on you without it working ever for you. So with that being said, we're going to jump into a whole bunch of stuff. Now, I'm firstly glad that I'm not the only person who's read that verse, if a man does not work, he shall not eat, and thought to myself, wow, like this is a different rule, God. This is a different rule. So here's my second question to you guys. Now that you have also heard of that scripture, if a man doesn't work, he shouldn't eat, and you thinking to yourself, hold on a minute, like I should learn the rules. Here's my question to you. Are you willing to learn the rules? If you're someone who's willing to learn the rules, throw in the comments the words, that's me. So I know I've got the right people in the house today as we jump in and we get paid by the truth that makes free. And guys, let me tell you something. Sometimes that's enough payment for me, just to have the truth that sets free. I don't know about you, but for me, that's enough payment for me. Guys, I'm gonna do something slightly off topic, but I think it's gonna be supremely valuable for all of us, right? I discovered something recently. I'm calling this the fool's tools. And I want to share it with you before we go deeper, because I want you to understand that one of the reasons why a person who discovers if they don't work, they won't be able to eat, decide not to work, okay? Because I don't know if you've ever thought about this. Well, hold on a minute. If a man doesn't work, he shouldn't eat. What would then possess a man to not work, all right? I don't know. If that's a good question, someone write in the chat. It is, right? Because that's a question that came to my mind. If a man doesn't work, he shall not eat. Well, what would possess a man who's aware of that? What would possess a man who comes into engagement with that? What would possess a man who knows that to then decide to not work? Like, I just thought that was super crazy. Like, if you know you're not going to eat if you don't work, surely you'll work. But surely not, because obviously the verse wouldn't be there if it was irrelevant. So when we think about it, if a man doesn't work, he shall not eat. The question came to me, what would possess a man to not work? What would possess a man to not want, if I use that language, to eat? Okay? What would possess a man to be in that predicament? What would possess a man to be in that situation and scenario? So I'm going to show you, because recently I discovered that there are tools which are owned by fools. And I want to share this with you because I don't want you to be someone who ends up hearing everything I'm going to share with you in today's session about how you can elevate to victories even from your valleys, but not recognize that there are still fool's tools that are going to attempt to steal from you. Okay? Now, a couple of months ago, for those of you who've been tracking with our family Bible and breakfast sessions, you will know that we spoke about how there's value in the valleys. So that was about 3 months ago, 2 months ago. We had a session talking about there's value in the valleys. But the reality is, even if you see the value in the valley, we spoke about Hagar, we spoke about a whole bunch of different people. But even if you see the value in the value in the valley, if you don't know how to get the victory from the valley, you will be looking at the value and just letting it go past. I don't want that to be your story. So let's jump in. Let's look at the fool's tools quickly first, right? So I'm going to go to Proverbs chapter 10. I'm going to be starting in Proverbs chapter 10. And in Proverbs chapter 10, I'm going to read a few verses just to reveal to you what you should see as the fool's tools. And the moment you know what the fool's tools are, guess what? They shouldn't be able to fool you, hopefully. All right? So let's go to Proverbs chapter 10. I'm going to read a few verses. I'll start in, because there's quite a few here. Let's just pick the verses out so we can do this with speed, and then we'll jump into 1 Kings chapter 10, which is where I really want to get into for today's session. So Proverbs chapter 10, I'm going to read verse 18. It says, he that hideth hatred with lying lips, and he that uttereth slander is a fool. Okay, so we are given here directly, succinctly, super clearly, one of the tools of the fools. Okay, it says, he that hideth hatred with lying lips, and he that uttereth a slander is a fool. So it's uttering certain things and it's hiding certain things with the lips. The first tool of the fool is what they are talking. Okay, for those of you who are writing notes, you want to write that down. What you are talking. Okay, and you want to be sure, you want to ensure, you want to make sure that you're most likely not someone who's talking foolishness. Why? Because it's a tool of the fool. Okay, this is one of the things that keep fools out of engaging with the trueness, with the reality of the rules. Someone write in the chat the word fool. Okay, the first tool of the fool is that they are, or what they are, talking. Okay, want you guys to understand this. This is the first tool that keeps them broke, busted, and disgusted. What they're talking, what's coming out of their mouth. Okay, I want you to bear this in mind. Let's go to verse 21. I'm in Proverbs chapter 10. I'm reading verse 21. 21 says, the lips of the righteous feed many. So that's not the fool, but let's go deeper. What's the second tool? Verse 21 says, but fools die for want of wisdom. Okay, so the first tool of the fool is what they are talking, but the second tool of the fool is what they are thinking. Okay, what they are thinking. The fact that they're not thinking the same way a wise person is thinking. I've heard it said before, they've got stinking thinking. Okay, I want you to think about that. Someone throw in the chat the word thinking. Okay, this is a tool of the fool. It's their own thinking working against them. It's their own talking working against them. Now, the reason why this is super important before we even start looking at how to get victory from the valley is if you are attempting to get victory from the valley, but you're talking the wrong thing and you're thinking the wrong thing, you are going to have stinking thinking, which is going to result in the wrong thing. This is why we have to be aware of where we are. It's one thing being in a valley, but here's the reality. Some people are in a valley because they put themselves there themselves. Hello, somebody. I know that might be a bit tough to start with today, but I just want you guys to understand. I want you to see what I'm really saying to you. Some people are in valleys that they're in because they put themselves there themselves. So it's important, it's imperative, it's essential for us to get an understanding, get a grasp, get a grip of what the actual tools of the fools are. Because the moment we get a clearer understanding of what the tools of the fools are, guess what we can do? We can make sure we ain't working them. We can make sure they're not working against us or on us. We can start developing, building, and deploying a new way to work. So let's go deeper. I'm going to read verse 18 again. I'll read 21 again. Then we're going to jump into Psalms 14 to give you the third tool of the fool. Okay. So the first tool of the fool is found in Proverbs chapter 10, verse 18. It says, he that hideth hatred with lying lips, and he that uttereth a slander is a fool. Okay. So what they're talking. It then goes on in verse 21. It says, the lips of the righteous feed many, but fools die for want of wisdom. So the second tool of the fool is what they're thinking. Let's go to Proverbs chapter 14, one of my favorite verses in the Bible. It's a super wake-up call when you dig deep into it and start to understand what it's really saying. But this is going to reveal to us the third tool of the fool. It's not just what they're thinking. It's not just what they're talking. It's also Psalm 14, verse 1. The fool. Yo, that was quick. That was direct. Yes, it's quick. It's direct. Let's go. The fool have said in his heart, no God. They are corrupt. They have done abominable works. There is none that doeth good. So if you want to know what the three tools of the fools are, the first one is their thinking. The second one is their talking. And the third one is what they're transferring. You see, you and I on a daily basis are transferring our beliefs, whether positive or negative, whether wealthy or healthy. You know, it does not matter what your beliefs are. You are transferring, someone throw in the chat the word transferring, you are transferring your beliefs on a day-to-day basis. Now, for those of you who do not understand what I'm talking about, if you look in science, first law of scientific principles states, it's the law of energy. It states that everything is energy. Energy is neither created nor destroyed. It is only ever transferred. Okay. Now I prefer a different word to the word energy because the Bible doesn't necessarily use the word energy. The Bible talks about something which people don't necessarily assimilate or associate with energy, but scientifically it's the same thing. And that's the word power. Now, if you study the Bible, you will see that power is not created, nor is it destroyed. It's only ever transferred. The Bible talks about God being all powerful. That's omnipotent, right? Power is only ever transferred. In Genesis chapter 1, he makes human beings. He says, in the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. And in verse 26 to 28, he says, let us make man in our image. What was he doing? Transferring power. Now, some of you are going to be like, oh, but I didn't get no transfer of power because you didn't read till verse 28. After 26, when he says, let us make man in our own image, he says, and let them have dominion. Dominion is another word for legislative power. Someone's catching this today. Why is this important? Let me tell you why it's important. Because the fool has specific tools. The tools of the fool are what they're talking, what they're thinking, and what they're transferring. Because fools also transfer their power or lack thereof. And many people embrace the power of the fool instead of giving up that tool. So now that I've given you guys the tools of the fools, are you happy for us to start looking at how to get victory out of a valley? If you are, just write in the comments, I am, as we jump into today's session. If you are, just write in the comments the words I am as we jump into today's session. Now, specifically today, what I want us to look at is I want us to look at, let's do 1 Kings. We're going to do 1 Kings chapter 10. And in 1 Kings chapter 10, we're specifically going to be breaking down a number of things which I think are going to help you guys on a whole new level, okay? And these things are going to assist you to see the three key core components of how you can tap into victory from any valley. I don't know if you've been in a valley. I don't know if you've had this month and said to yourself, you know what, this month has been challenging for me, or this month has been a bit more difficult than I've wanted it to be. Guys, we are going to show you how to literally elevate without having to hesitate out of the valley and into the victory. So with that being said, let's go. We're in 1 Kings chapter 10. We're going to start right at the top from verse 1, and we're going to be looking at the Queen of Sheba coming to see King Solomon, okay? And guys, if you haven't read 1 Kings, it's one of the books that I'm restudying recently. And guys, I would encourage you, read that book. It's a powerful book with so many nuggets, So many keys for you and for me. So without further ado, let's go. And guys, just as a quick intermission, if you are getting value throughout this session and you're joining on social, feel free to do all of the social stuff, the like, subscribe, the share, whatever you do, if this is of value to you. Because I assure you, if this is of value to you, it's probably of value to someone who knows you too. All right. So feel free to do that before we get deeper into today's session, because I don't want anyone to miss the blessing that maybe God has for them. So without further ado, let's jump in. All right. We've discovered earlier on in this session that there are specific tools being used by fools. I'm here to submit to you today that those specific tools are the very same things that are stopping people from achieving victory when they're in places which feel like a valley. As we go through today's session, I'm going to unlock for you 3 core areas the Bible shows us that we can tap into victory even if we're in a valley. And I hope you guys are ready. If you are, throw the word ready in the chat, because we're going to start unpacking that. Now, 1 Kings chapter 10, I'm reading from verse 1. It says, "And when the queen of Sheba heard of the fame of Solomon concerning the name of the Lord, she came to prove him with hard questions." Okay. Now, the first key works on both sides. It works for you. It works for me. It works for your coach. It works for the coachee. It works for the leader. It works for the led. It doesn't make a difference your position. This key works for everyone. All right. And when the queen of Sheba heard of the fame of Solomon, she came to prove him with hard questions. Someone throw in the chat the word questions. Because I'm here to share with you that the first key is that vulnerability produces victory. Okay? Vulnerability produces victory. I'm going to share something with you guys. Many people have no victory because they haven't engaged in vulnerability. You see, one of the things I tell my coaching clients, right? I have high level business entrepreneurs, property investment coaching clients who invest in our £55,000 roundtable program, who invest in our tens of thousands of pounds coaching programs, who jump on our VIP days for a £200,000 investment. And one of the things that I say to all my coaching clients at all levels, even people who are just coming on the 5-day cash flow creation week, one of the things I say to people again and again, persistently and consistently, is your transparency produces your transformation. I want you to think about that. Your transparency produces your transformation. Your transformation does not come from a next tactic. You see, that's the problem for most people. They're looking for the tactic instead of looking for the transformation. I remember a number of years ago, I went on a £20,000. It was £16,000 plus VAT. With the 20% VAT, it worked out at 19,200. I'm doing the maths quick. If I'm incorrect, you let me know. So roughly £20,000. Let's call it £20,000. I went on a £20,000 property investment course. And when I finished that course after the 12 months, I learned a number of things. There were like 3 things I wrote down that I was like, wow, this is a game changer. But here's the thing that's powerful. One of the lessons, I'll share it with you right now, that I learned was this. I already had a successful property sourcing business before I went on that coaching program. I was already securing deals, selling deals, okay? I was already doing stuff, generating income outside of my full-time work as a teacher. This was 2015, 2016. So I was already doing something right. Someone write in the comments the word right, okay? I was already doing something right. Now watch this. I go on this £20,000 property coaching program, and they are teaching me some amazing stuff. They're showing me how to do this, how to do that. Like, a lot of the stuff wasn't new to me, but there were stuff that was brand new to me, okay? So I'm being totally transparent. I learned stuff on that program, right? But here's the thing that's powerful. The stuff I was learning that was new caused me to do something I now look back and think, next time I wouldn't do. Let me give you to you. What I started to do was I started to stop doing what I was doing that was already working and start doing what they were showing me that was working. Now, when we got to the end of the year, one of the things they do on that coaching program is they celebrate what they call the top performers, 5 people who produce hit it out of the park results, right? And I felt unfortunate about it because that was one of my goals, but I unfortunately didn't end up being one of the top 5 performers. And that was what put me in a position to start asking myself reflective questions like, Samuel, why did you not become a top 5 performer? Considering you were already doing a lot of this stuff before you even joined this program. Like, you know how to do this. Like, why Why weren't you one of the top performers as a result? All right. Is that a good question? If that was a good question, someone just put in the chat the word yes. I know that, okay, you guys might be asking a similar question, or I don't know, maybe I'm weird, right? But that was the question I asked myself. Let me tell you the answer I got. I got 3 answers, and these were the 3 big learnings I got from the training. But one of the answers was I was attempting to replace what I was doing instead of attempting to multiply and maximize what I was doing. Okay, I want you to think about this, because you might be someone who's gone on a training program and you thought to yourself, you know what, this training program is going to produce this result for me. I'm going to make so much money when I learn what they're teaching. And what you start doing, what can happen is you can start doing what they're saying and stop doing what got you into that room in the first place, which was of value. Okay? And by virtue of doing that, guess what's going to happen? You are going to lose momentum. Because if there's something you're doing right to build momentum to get you into that room, that's not something you need to throw off. The Bible says, Proverbs chapter 19, verse 28. Let me go there. Let me make sure I'm saying the right thing. Or is it 18:29? I feel like I'm messing the numbers up now. 29:18. As I said that, it came to my mind. Proverbs 29:18, right? Here. Where there is no vision, the people perish, but he that keepeth the law, happy is he. This goes back to what I said at the start of the session. Guys, if God makes up laws and he doesn't check in with you when he's making the laws, surely you should want to know what those laws are. Why? Because everyone who keeps the law, Proverbs 29:18, happy is he. Why are you happy when you know the laws? Because you know, okay, if I do this, gravity gonna make me splat. I know if I do this, entropy means it's going to mess up. I know if I do this, inertia means everything's gonna stay slow because we go in slow. The reality is you want to know the laws so you can be happy, so you can be glad, so you can know what makes people happy or sad. This is why you want to know the law. You don't want to know the law so you can be the big head honcho walking around with your chest up. You want to know the law so you can stay safe. Oh, I don't know if this is helping somebody, but guys, I want you to understand this. I went on a £20,000 program. I invested what was literally my last money. I even had to borrow money to get on that program. And I felt as though I'd let myself down coming to the end of the year by not being one of the top performers. Why? Because I felt that I should have. I felt as though I had an unfair advantage starting the course. But here's the key. The key is when I looked at the people that did stand on the stage, when I looked at the 5 that did make it as quote unquote top performer status throughout that 12 months, I realized something very simple. I realized every single one of them, especially those that were already doing something, there's another principle which I'm not going to share now, because that was the main big lesson that I believe God gave me in 2016 about that training, or about my learning on that training. But the key I'm sharing with you guys is every single one of those people who stood on stage had taken what they'd learned and added it to what they had already been doing. I was trying to replace instead of magnify and maximize. Someone write in the chat the word maximize. This is your public service announcement. You will receive victory even if you're in a valley when you think to maximize. You will receive victory even in a valley when you think to multiply. Now some of you are thinking, Samuel, this is a bit crazy, bro. Why are you coming with this energy? Why are you telling me I need to maximize? Why are you telling me I need to multiply? I'm going to tell you one reason why. Because in Genesis chapter 1, verse 26 to 28, when God declares that he made human beings, he did not make human beings and say, let's make them in our image. Let's make them replace us. He didn't say, let's make them in our image. Let's make them people that have to rub out what they've done in order for them to have fun doing what they're going to do. Instead, he said the complete opposite. He said, I'm giving you dominion. I'm making you someone who's going to be able to maximize. How do you maximize? He told you, look, guys, let's go there. Genesis chapter 1. Okay? Genesis chapter 1. I know I said to you 1 Kings. I know you're in 1 Kings 10. I know we're reading verse 1. But guys, I need you to catch this. Genesis chapter 1, verse 26. And God said, let us make man in our image after our likeness and let them have dominion over the flesh of the, dominion over the fish of the sea. Now, here's something that's important, right? God didn't give me dominion over anybody. Okay, I want you just to understand that. Because this is a problem for many people. Many people, and I know this is like, we got men in the house. Many people are trying to have dominion over other people. God never said that. Okay, I'll just say it again. God never said that. Okay, to the dads trying to have dominion over your children, to the husbands trying to have dominion over your wife. God never said that. Okay, you have a leadership capacity, husband, dad, right? You have a leadership role, husband, dad, right? But you don't have dominion over another human being. That's not part of the law he set down. Okay, so I just want you to bear that in mind. Okay, let's go deeper. And guys, the reason I'm being so expansive as I share today is genuinely because I've just covered with you guys earlier the tools of the fools. I don't want you to be aware that what you're talking, what you're thinking, what you're transferring can be a problem for you, but then not be aware of where some of this stuff comes from. Because if you don't read Genesis 1:26-28, and you don't discover the law he set down, that he's given you dominion over certain things, but not over other things, guess what's going to happen? You're going to be like Paul or Saul in the Bible, who the Bible says, Saul, Saul, why do you kick against the pricks? You're going to be trying to fight a battle you can't win. You're going to be trying to go on an uphill journey where the slope, the incline, is something that you should have chosen to decline. I hope you guys are getting this. Let's go deeper. Genesis chapter 1, verse 26. And God said, let us make man in our image. It says, and after our likeness. He goes on to say, and let them have dominion over the fish of the sea, and over the fowl of the air, and over the cattle, and over all the earth, and over every creeping thing that creepeth upon the earth. Now look, guys, someone write in the chat the word zoo, okay? I want you to think about this, right? This is the reason why we have zoos, okay? And most people don't realize this. Most people don't realize the reason we have zoos is because of Genesis chapter 1, verse 26-28. We don't have zoos because it's cute to look at a lion. We don't have zoos because it's cute. Guys, the reason we have zoos is because me and you have been given dominion over all that other stuff. That's why we have zoos. Okay, now here's something you should think about. What would happen if you started to put your finances in a zoo with a zookeeper? Some of you are going to catch that. What would happen if you started to put your time management skills in a zoo with a zookeeper? Someone tell me in the chat, genuine question, what would happen? What would happen if you recognize the same way you have dominion over cattle, over fish, over birds, the same way human beings have learned to control all the things that God has told us we have dominion over? Here's my question to you. What would happen if you actually started to exercise control over things like your time, over things like your talents, over things like your treasure? What would happen? Someone throw the answer in the chat for yourself personally. Genesis chapter 1, verse 26. And over the fowl of the air, and over the cattle, and over all the earth, and over every creeping thing that creepeth upon the earth. Now, this is where, in my opinion, it gets good. Verse 27, let's go. So God created man in his own image. In the image of God created he him. Male and female created he them. Male and female created he them. Male and female created he them. Right? We could read that verse a few times with the current state of the society we're in. 28. And God blessed them. And God said unto them, be fruitful. You know, look, guys, this is super off topic, but I've really got to do this, right? You know what really, really confuses me sometimes? People who want to say they want to live God's way, but then say things that have nothing to do with God's way. Like, listen, if you're someone who doesn't read the Bible, just say you don't read the Bible. Don't make stuff up. Don't talk about things like inclusion when you don't read the book that created the people you're trying to include. Is this helping someone? Am I saying something that's helpful today, guys? Because I want you to understand, I've heard people, I've seen people, I've come across people who will tell you that they're believers of the book, but they're not obviously reading the book. Because the book tells you what inclusion is. The book is the definitive de facto manifesto on inclusion. Please don't be preaching inclusion under an illusion. That's my little rabbit I'm chasing today. Let's go deeper. 28. He created male and female, created he them. Sorry, that was 27 again. 28. And God blessed them, and God said unto them, here it goes, be fruitful. Okay? Be fruitful. We have been given a mandate from Genesis chapter 1, first book of the first book, of the first chapter in your first look. Be fruitful. Let's go deeper. Verse 28, Genesis chapter 1. Be fruitful and multiply and replenish the earth and subdue it and have dominion. Why do you have dominion? Because he told you earlier, let's make them and give them dominion. And have dominion over the fish of the sea and over the fowl of the air and over every living thing that moveth. Oh, this is so good, upon the earth. You see, some of you may have seen some of my videos and you hear me talking about cash flow and you think, oh, this guy, he's always talking about money, okay? Can he really be a believer? He's always talking about money, all right? Well, here's the thing. Money moves. I know that was a light bulb for some of you. I know some of you are literally thinking, Samuel, I've never realized that. You see, God gave us dominion over everything that moves upon the earth, every creeping thing, every flying thing, every swimming thing. He says, and listen to this, watch this, end of verse 28. And over every living thing that moveth upon the earth. Now, I'm going to give you some homework, right? Because I don't need to do it for you. You should do it for you, okay? A little bit of homework is this. Go and study the similarities between blood, okay? Let me ask this. Is blood living? Someone tell me in the chat. Is blood living? And I don't want a yes or no. I want blood is living or blood is not living. Is blood living? Okay? Is blood living? Okay, that's my question. Let's go. All right? And I'm waiting on you guys. I want you guys to tell me. Is blood living? Right? And if you believe blood is living, just write in the comments, blood is living. Okay? Now, if you read the Bible tells you whether blood's living because it says the life is in the blood. Okay? It tells you that in the Bible. So here's the question. Is blood living? Well, if blood is living, here's your homework. All right? Your homework, guys, I see you, Dwayne. Let's go. Your homework, guys, is this. I would like you to go and study all the similarities between blood and between money. Okay? Between blood and between money. Okay? You see, when they want to create a blood transfusion, when someone's losing blood at a fast rate and they want to do a blood transfusion, that means they want to put blood into someone's body. Where do they get the blood from? Does anyone know? Where do they get the blood from? They get the blood from a blood bank. Where do most people store up their money? They store their money inside of a bank. Oh, that's just one for you guys as you go off and do your homework. Let's go. Now, as we go deeper, all right? Let's go. Dwayne said, I've got notes on this. You've taught this before. Let's go. Because guys, why am I sharing this with you? I want you to understand, don't be a fool. Don't be someone who's talking the wrong thing, thinking the wrong thing, transferring the wrong thing to your children. Worse, according to Proverbs, to your children's children. Be someone who's thinking the right thing, talking the right thing, transferring the right thing, because you understand how to see the law from the right place. Hashtag from the right thing. I see it. Flourish says blood is living. Let's go. All right, I want you guys to think about this. In Genesis chapter 1, verse 26 to 28, he says, I give man dominion. He says, go multiply. He says, be fruitful, multiply, replenish, subdue. He says, and have dominion over every living thing that moves upon the earth. You are supposed to have dominion over every living thing that moves upon the earth. Not other people, but definitely processes, definitely places. Guys, definitely principles. But how can you have dominion over principles if you don't even learn them? How can you have dominion over your blood if you don't even learn about it? And like I said to you, blood and cash flow are very similar. They're very similar. Why? Living entities that move upon the earth. Now, if something's living, guess what? You're supposed to have dominion over it. Not another person. He didn't say that. That wasn't part of the contract. But you should have dominion over it. How do you have dominion over it? Happy is he who discovers the law. Proverbs 29:18, which we read earlier. Guys, I don't know if this is helping someone. Let's go. All right. 1 Kings chapter 10. Let's go back there. So I've said to you guys, I'm going to give you 3 keys in order to have victory, even if you're in a valley. The first one, we said 1 Kings chapter 10, verse 1. We read 1 Kings chapter 10 verse 1, and it was super profound, right? It says, and when the queen of Sheba heard of the fame of Solomon concerning the name of the Lord, she came to prove him with hard questions. What did I share? I shared your first key is vulnerability produces victory. Now I'm going to show you something because I want you to see this. The queen of Sheba perceived. Okay, this is the first key. The first key can be broken down in terms of what you are able to perceive. Okay, and guys, please forgive me. I'm not Picasso, right? So the handwriting, etc., you know what it is, right? Perceived. This is reminding me of a story I heard of Smith Wigglesworth once years ago. Smith Wigglesworth used to really complain when people would bring newspapers in his house. He'd say, "Don't bring that trash from the devil into my house." But yeah, he used to write letters to a lot of evangelists and ministers, and his spelling was completely terrible, apparently, right? They'd write about how his spelling was really terrible. And he'd say, but do you understand what I'm writing? And they'll be like, yes. He's like, well, that's what matters, right? So hopefully this is a Smith Wigglesworth moment in that regard. So the Queen of Sheba perceived. It said, when she heard of the fame of Solomon and of the Lord, she came to ask him hard questions. Why? Because vulnerability produces victory. You see, you might be in a place right now where you don't want to be vulnerable. You don't want to tell people what you're going through. You see, one of the big things in the last decade that's blown up is therapy. Oh, we need therapy. You know what therapy is? Therapy is just paid vulnerability. Oh, sorry guys. Sorry to the therapists out there, right? But that's all it is. The job of the therapist is to help you become vulnerable. It's to help you open up. It's to create and provide a safe space for you to be vulnerable. Here's the reality. If you aren't vulnerable outside of therapy, you aren't going to be achieving the value that vulnerability can produce for you. Why? Because you need to be vulnerable. You need to be someone who knows I've got nothing to lose, nothing to hide, nothing to gain. I'm free. If you're not free, guys, you can't be free for 60 minutes with a therapist and then be bound for 23 hours outside of therapy. That doesn't make any sense, but people are living like that, where they're sharing their deepest, downest desires and all of the things they require in their 60-minute therapy session, and they come out of that and they're acting like someone else the minute they're out of there. Guys, you can't be free like that. You can't be free like that. The Bible tells you how to be free. The first key is vulnerability. Oh, this is helping someone. Guys, I want you to understand, that's how you get free. That's how you start getting victory even though you're in a valley. You might be in a dark place. You might be in a dingy place. You might be in a dirt-stricken place. But when you get vulnerable, guys, let me tell you a quick story. In the New Testament, Jesus told a story of two brothers. Most people call him the prodigal son. I don't like the name the prodigal son because when you study the book, he's not the prodigal son. He came back. He did the right thing in the end. But let me tell you about this son, which is interesting. This son ends up in a valley with pigs. Someone write in the comment the word pigs. Because I don't know about the valley you're in, but I can assure you it's probably not that deep. And I'm not saying this to discredit your depth of your valley. I'm saying this to give perspective on the place of the valley. This guy's in a valley with pigs. He's eating the slop of pigs. Now, those of you who know, and look, let me even go deeper. Those of you who are going to be at our next family Bible and breakfast, I'm going to be breaking down a deep level of training as it relates to pigs and a whole bunch of other animals. But for those of you who know, the Bible declares that pigs are unclean animals. They're not the only, but they are one of multiple sets of unclean animals. This guy's living with unclean animals. He's living with swine. He's living with pigs. He's in a valley, guys. But guess what gets him out of the valley? Hashtag vulnerability. Someone throw in the chat the word vulnerability. The Bible says when he came to himself. What does that mean? That means he perceived. He perceived something different so he could receive something different. Guys, some of us have never received something different because we've never invested the time to perceive something different. You're not going to put yourself in a room with someone who thinks more aligned with the thing you're assigned, but you think you're going to perceive differently. When he perceived, he set himself on the journey to be able to be one who received. He tapped into vulnerability. It said he came to himself and realized not even the slaves in my father's house are in this predicament and position I'm in. Let me go back. Vulnerability. See, at the age of 19, I gave up a habit. I used to smoke, guys. I used to smoke. For 21 years, I have not smoked, but I used to smoke. And I want you to tell you something. You know what was the first key for me to become free? It was vulnerability. It was me recognizing I have a problem. It was me recognizing I have a problem. Here's a question, guys. I'm just going to be super open and transparent right now. Do you have a problem? If you've got a problem, just write in the chat, I do. Guys, and guys, this ain't me trying to get in your business. This is me trying to train you and help you and assist you to becoming vulnerable. And it's not about being vulnerable to me. It's about being vulnerable to thee. You got to be vulnerable to yourself. Guys, if you can't tell yourself the truth, oh my gosh, how do you think you're going to hear the truth? I know that just helped somebody. If you can't even tell yourself the truth, how do you think you're going to be able to hear the truth? The Bible says in John chapter 8, verse 32, you will know the truth and the truth will make you free. The problem for most people is they can't even tell themselves the truth, let alone hear the truth from someone else. Oh, but if I tell myself the truth, I'm going to have to change. Well, guys, don't you want new results? Let me show you this. Let me show you this. This is going to help someone, right? If 2 plus 2 equals 4, that makes this what we call an output. If that's an output, that is a byproduct of a respective input. Hello, somebody. Someone's literally realizing this right now. Outputs are always a direct byproduct of inputs. What does that mean? That means if you are fed up with living fed up, if you are tired of being tired, if you are stressed about being stressed, ladies and gentlemen, I'm telling you, it's now time for you to get blessed. But what is getting blessed? Getting blessed isn't, oh, I'm blessed because I said it. Let me tell you what getting blessed is. Getting blessed is altering your output. So let's say your output's 4, but you don't want your output to be 4 anymore. Let's say you want your output to be 7. How do we change the output of the 4 to the 7? Someone told me in the chat. It's very simple. All we have to do is not even think about the output. We have to just work on a component of the input. If I focus on a component of the input, I'm automatically, radically, revolutionizing my output. I don't have to get stressed about being stressed. I don't have to be tired of being tired. I don't have to be sick of feeling sick. When I can actually discover and uncover that an alteration of my input will automatically change my output. This is why vulnerability produces victory. Because some of us just aren't vulnerable enough with ourselves. This is why there's an epidemic of therapy. Because some of us don't know how to tell ourselves the truth, which is why there's an epidemic of therapy. Some of us haven't realized that you're paying someone to be vulnerable to. And guys, this is not me saying therapy is negative. I'm not saying therapy is negative. I'm telling you, God was trying to be your therapist before you went to go pay a therapist. That's what I'm trying to tell you. And again, it doesn't mean don't have a therapist. It just means understand there's someone who cared about you before you cared about yourself. Before you perceived that you might need a therapist, someone else perceived that you might need a therapist. And they set things up for you to get therapy by telling you and showing you in 1 Kings chapter 10, verse 1, before we got to verse 2, that vulnerability produces victory. That's all it is. That's all it is. So Dwayne said it. What you got to do is you have to change the input. Simple. Change the input. So let's look at this, right? If I said to myself, you know what? I've perceived through vulnerability that I'm not happy with what I'm getting in life. So as a result, I want to change what I'm getting in life. I don't want to start sweating in life. So I now focus on altering a component of my input. I become more vulnerable. And as I become more vulnerable, I'm more open to the truth to myself, the truth from other people. And let's say that gives me a 15 in my input. I'm journaling on a daily basis. I'm reading through the tapes. Excuse me, guys. Playing back the tapes, reading through the tapes is the way I say what Jim Rohn used to teach, which is you read your journals back, right? Because I used to have this big issue where for years, over 10 years, I would write in my journals, but never reread my journals. And then the 1 or 2 times I'd read them, I'll be like, Samuel, what are you doing, bro? The stuff in here is valuable. Like, why are you not reading this? Okay. So playing back the tapes is also as valuable, if not even more valuable than writing. Okay. Than writing. Why do you think world-class boxers, they watch fight tapes of their opponents? Why do you think world-class baseball players, world-class basketball players, world-class footballers, soccer players, for my American people, right? Why do you think these people watch the tapes? Because it's one thing playing the game and being exceptional, but it's another thing watching the tape and learning something incremental. And as I've taught you guys before, incremental partnerships create exponential results. So it starts with being vulnerable. So if I shift my input from a 5 to a 15, I automatically shift my output from a 7 to a 17. This is what we have to understand. This is the power of vulnerability. Vulnerability produces victory. You see, the Bible says in John 8, it says, and you will know the truth and the truth will make you free. It doesn't say, and you will know the truth and you'll make yourself free with the truth. It doesn't say that. And this is the problem most of us have. Most of us are so focused on the output, we've cast off restraint on the input. Most of us are so focused on the output. Guess what's happening now? We're so focused on the output, we don't even know there's something we need to do in terms of the input. Guys, I want you to understand, you can hack the output. Someone write in the chat the word hack. I can hack the output. By doing what? By doing something super simple. What's that? Focusing on the input. I can hack the output. But most people get so focused on the output, they lose sight of the input. Guys, why do you think I've spent over a decade saying to people at the end of my videos, small keys open big doors? Guys, what's the small key here? Look at it. The small key is the input. Ladies and gentlemen, this is the small key. It's right here. It's the input. It changes the big door. It opens the big door. It alters the big door. For you and for me, for sure. Small keys open big doors. This is why I say that, guys. I don't say it because it's cool. I don't say it because it's fun. I don't say it because, oh, it's a nice slogan. I say it because it's the truth. Small keys open big doors. Hopefully someone's catching this today. Let's go deeper. So we see that what the Queen of Sheba, 1 Kings chapter 10, perceived is what allowed her to achieve victory. Okay, and her victory came from a vulnerability. All right, it took the queen a realization that she had questions she wanted answered, to be motivated to go get them answered. All right, I've written a note here. I've said humility comes before honor. Okay, some of us have problems. I see in the comments, I do, from when I ask the question, have you got a problem? Some of us have problems, but guess what? Some of us won't humble ourselves enough to know that we want to get those questions answered, that we want to get those problems solved. This is where there's a lack of vulnerability, and that lack of vulnerability creates barriers to your victory. But when you are going to be vulnerable, guess what's going to happen? Everything, as Jim Rohn used to say, will change for you. All right? I'm mindful of time, so let's keep it tracking. Let's go deeper. Let's go to verse 10. 1 Kings chapter 10. I'm gonna speed up to verse 10. And guys, here's the second homework for you. The first homework I gave you guys earlier. Second homework is this, guys. Read through 1 Kings chapter 10 for yourself, okay? Maybe even read through the whole of 1 Kings. But let's go. 1 Kings chapter 10, verse 10. Hope you're ready. It says, and she gave the king 120 talents of gold, okay? And of spices, very great store, and precious stones. There came no more such abundance of spices as these which the Queen of Sheba gave to King Solomon. Now, why is this so profound? It's so profound because it's not just vulnerability that produces victory. There's also, there's also another key that I want to share with you, and that is virtue is birthed in the valleys. Virtue is birthed in the valleys. Samuel, what do you mean? When you are inside of a challenging place, David said, surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life. When he was in a dark valley, okay? Goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days, whilst he's in a dark valley. I want you to understand this. Virtue is birthed when you're in those valleys. When you're in a valley, sometimes you're able to think about things you would never think about when things are cool and victorious and value filled. Don't waste the valley time. Don't waste the valley time just moaning and complaining, stressing and straining. Instead, inside of the valley, don't only be someone who's able to perceive so you can start to receive, but also be someone who's ready to see the virtue inside of that valley. You see, the Queen of Sheba did something powerful. Yes, she perceived, but she did something super powerful here in verse 10. She paid. She paid. She paid handsomely. The Bible says what she paid, people have never paid that amount before. She paid. Now, why did she pay? I submit to you, she paid based on what she perceived. Verse 1 tells you, when the Queen of Sheba heard of the fame of Solomon and of the Lord, she came to prove him with hard questions. She perceived, hold on a minute, she has a problem in terms of running her kingdom, and there's this guy who's another king who has no problems in running his kingdom, from what I can see. So now that I have this perception and I'm able to be vulnerable in my valley, I'm going to go and get some victory. I'm going to go and ask him the questions and get some answers. So she goes to ask him some questions. She starts to get some answers, and he gives her answers. Look, guys, I want to read this because I want you guys to see this, right? Verse 2 and 3. And she came to Jerusalem with a very great train, with camels that bear spices and very much gold and precious stones. And when she was come to Solomon, she communed with him of all that was in her heart, right? Transparency produces transformation. When I'm saying this to my coaching clients, they might not know where I get this from. I get this from right here. But let's go deeper. Verse 3. And Solomon told her all her questions. So he answered her questions. Watch this. There was not anything hid from the king, which he told her not. Now watch this, verse 4. And when the Queen of Sheba had seen all Solomon's wisdom and the house that he had built, and the meat of his table, and the sitting of his servants, and the attendance of his ministers, and their apparel, and his cupbearers, and his ascent. This is where it gets super powerful for me, the last part of this verse. And his ascent by which he went up unto the house of the Lord, there was no more spirit in her. That means he took her breath away. Let's go deeper though. Verse 6. And she said to the king, it was a true report that I heard in my own land of your acts and of your wisdom. What she's saying is, the moment she recognized, she perceived right. Watch this. You see, there's one thing to perceive. Oh, you know what? I've been out here, I've got a problem, right? Some of you guys wrote, I do, right? I've been out here, I've got a problem. Let's say the problem is your finances. Let's say your problem is your family. Let's say your problem is your faith, right? You found you've got a problem. You've been vulnerable enough to recognize you've got a problem. You've perceived there's a problem, okay? Now, here's what she did. After she perceived that there was a problem, she took a step to find out if she can solve the problem. She went to see King Solomon. She went to speak to King Solomon. While speaking to King Solomon, sharing her problem, receiving answers to her questions, guess what happens? Her perception shifted to, this is who I thought it was. He's actually giving me the answers to the questions I had. So guess what she did? She paid. You see, this is part of the problem we have in today's society. People have been convinced to not pay. You see, let me tell you why they've been convinced to not pay. Because the system that is broken, that you are trying to get away from, that doesn't help you, that is actually trying to harm you, is the same system that's taught you to not pay. You see, I've said this for years, and I'll say it again. You cannot use school tactics to achieve non-school outcomes. A non-school outcome, for example, might be to be financially free. School don't talk about financial freedom. So nothing you learn in school is going to help you with financial freedom. If someone understands what I'm talking about, just write in the comments, I do, so I know I'm talking to the right people. Just think about it. I used to work in a school. I used to teach in schools. I used to be a teacher, trainer, teaching teachers how to teach you. And guess what I discovered working in schools? Nothing in the school is going to prepare you to have what most people actually want to have. You want to have a successful marriage. They don't teach that in school. Guys, I'm just keeping it super real. But if all of the artillery you have, if all of the weaponry you have, if all of the accessories you have, your skill set, tool set, and mindset is developed by a school system, how can you achieve non-school outcomes? The answer is you cannot. You cannot achieve non-school outcomes using school frameworks. You cannot achieve non-school outcomes using school tools. You cannot achieve non-school outcomes using schools' systems. This is why in Romans chapter 12, verse 2, it says you must not be conformed to the way of the world. Why? Because if you are going to use school systems, tactics, and strategies, you are going to get school outcomes. If you desire to have non-school outcomes, you must use non-school tactics. You must use non-school principles. You must use non-school strategies. The systems, sequences, and strategies that most people are using are school tactics. This is why they cannot achieve non-school outcomes. So she paid. How much is it to go to school? Oh, school's free. You see, that's the life we live right now. How much is it to go to school? School's free. Let's go. Lola says, and I was a teacher too. That is for true. Let's go. Okay. Look at this. I do for sure. So true. You guys are getting this. This is the problem. We're living in a world where school's free. So because school's free, guess what you think? You think real value's free. Well, we just shared that what they're giving you in school is not a tool. They're disadvantaging you. They're stealing from you. John chapter 10, verse 10, it says, the thief comes to steal, kill, and destroy. I have come that you might have life and life more abundantly. But Romans 12:2 tells us how to access that life. Don't be conformed to the way of the world. Don't let them mold you. But what does it say in the rest of the verse? It says, but be transformed. That's a metamorphosis. That's the caterpillar becoming the butterfly. Be transformed. How do you get transformed? Listen to this. By the renewing of your mind. By going through a new education system so you end up with a more righteous system. You see, if you spend all your life with a godless system, you can only produce godless results. Whereas on the contrary, in contrast, if you decide that I am going to discover the law, again, Proverbs 29:18, let's go there. Guys, listen, this is so rich. I just hope you catch this. Proverbs 29:18, it says, where there is no vision, the people perish. I don't want to perish. Do you want to perish? I don't want to perish financially. I don't want to perish in my family. I don't want to perish in my faith. Where there is no vision, the people perish. What does that mean? I need to have a vision for my finances. I need to have a vision for my faith. I need to have a vision for my family. But here's the best part for me, the last part of the verse. But he that keepeth the law, happy is he. How do you keep the law if you don't know the law? How do you keep the law if you think there's no law for sure? This is why I share with people, when you find someone, a woman of God, a man of God, who has principles, practices, and precepts that you know you desire in your life, follow them. Why? Because if you've perceived, you can receive. If you've paid, you get to play. Some people don't want to pay, but they want to play. Some people don't want to perceive, but they want to receive. Think about that. Just really think about that. Imagine not paying the ground the seed. Do you think you'll ever get the tree? Imagine not waiting for the root. Do you think the tree will shoot and provide you with fruit? Think about it, ladies and gentlemen. Think about it. Let's go deeper because our time is fast spent. So, 1 Kings chapter 10, we read verse 1, we read verse 10. We saw in 1 Kings chapter 10, verse 1, we saw the first thing that happened is she perceived. The Queen of Sheba perceived. Solomon's got the value. I want the value. So when she perceived, her vulnerability produced her victory. Her being vulnerable enough to realize, you know what, I got shortcomings. My kingdom could be running a lot better. You know what, let me go see what this king's saying, because he knows what he's talking about. She went and asked him her questions. Guess what? He answered all her questions. And it says he took her breath away. It said there was no more spirit in her. That's the language it used. He took her breath away because of how clear and succinctly he was breaking down the stuff. Okay? So her vulnerability produced her victory. Okay? But then it goes deeper. When we got to verse 10, it says she paid. Why did she pay? Because there is literal virtue being birthed inside of the valley. When you're in a valley, be someone who recognizes, you know what? I need to invest in myself. I need to see the virtue of having someone close to me who has the answers. I need to see the virtue of having access to these answers. Because anything can happen. Tomorrow's not promised. The same people that have the answers for you today may not be here tomorrow. Quick story to give you guys insight into this. I remember a number of years ago, I would read in my library, behind me, all the books I've got here in front of me, like in my library. Let me tell you this, guys. I want you guys to understand this. In my library, I have one author who is the author of the overwhelming majority of the books inside of my library. That is Dr. Miles Monroe. Someone write in the chat, Dr. Miles Monroe, the late, great Dr. Miles Monroe. Okay? Now, why am I sharing this with you? This is why I'm sharing this with you. Because I never got to meet Dr. Miles Monroe. That's why I'm sharing this with you. I'm sharing this with you because as much of his content that I read, as much of the impact he had on my life, I would have wanted to meet this guy. And I never got to meet this guy. Okay? And let me tell you why I never got to meet him. Because of me, not because of him. Just guys, I want you to think about this for a moment. He was running conferences whilst I was able to go to conferences. I might have told myself I can't afford it. I might have told myself it's in Bahamas. I might have given myself an excuse, but excuses are useless. Because when the time's up, the time's up. And you aren't going to be able to say, oh, but I should have, I would have, I could have. No, because the time's gone. And time is not something, ladies and gentlemen, that you are going to tell yourself you control, even though you may have an element of control over it. So I'm here to tell you today, when you are in the valley, when you are in the low place, when you feel like, I don't know what's going on, find virtue in the valley. Recognize in the valley, you know what, there's people I can invest in. There's people who can help me get out of this and get into my best lane. Guys, be that person who invests in yourself in the valley. The Queen of Sheba, according to 1 Kings 10:10, she paid. You know why she paid? So she could go and play. Let's go. Let's go deeper. Let's go to verse 13. We're going to wrap up here. 1 Kings 10 verse 13, it says, and King Solomon gave unto the queen. Watch this. So she paid. Like, here's the thing that's funny, right? Some people think, oh, I got questions. I got problems. I got questions, right? And then they go get their questions answered, right? And then they think because their questions are answered that they're winning. Let me tell you something. They're winning to a degree, but they may still be in a valley. Okay, I want you to understand this. So watch what happens here. The Queen of Sheba literally had to pay a premium to get the results she wanted. So did Joseph, so did Daniel, the list goes on. So do you, so do I. Okay? Joseph paid a premium. He spent multiple years in a prison paying the premium. He spent multiple years as a slave paying the premium so that he can become in the palace. So did Daniel. Daniel was kidnapped as a child and spent multiple dynasties, 4 dynasties, paying a premium with his life to be able to become the guy at the top of those 4 dynasties. So do you. And you've already started paying your premium, sometimes through the dramas and the traumas that you've already gone through. That's why I'm here to tell you, you will have to pay a premium. But here's the difference. You can choose to pay the premium instead of being forced to pay the premium. Don't let life beat you up when you can say, you know what, I'm going to discover the law so I can beat it up. Let's go. Verse 13. And King Solomon gave unto the Queen of Sheba all her desire. Now he's already answered her questions. Someone throw in the chat the word questions. He's already answered her questions. And she's already happy enough to pay a premium. But after she paid is when King Solomon really came to play. And this isn't because he was holding back the value. This is because there's a difference between a value exchange and a virtue exchange. So he answered her questions, but now she's now paid. Now watch what happens, verse 13. And King Solomon gave unto the Queen of Sheba all her desire, whatsoever she asked, beside that which Solomon gave her of his royal bounty. So she turned and went to her own country, she and her servants. She got what she came for. Guys, imagine if you got what you came for. Imagine if in your life you finally, actually, ultimately got what you came for. You see, I want to share something with you. The Queen of Sheba, according to 1 Kings chapter 10, verse 1, she perceived the right thing. She perceived, you know what, I need to get vulnerable. And her vulnerability produced her victory. The Queen of Sheba decided to pay. She recognized that she had virtue, which was being birthed inside of her valley. Yes, her challenge was a challenge, but you know what? There's someone who can help me. Let me go and get the help from the guy who can help me, right? But here's the thing where it gets super powerful for me. The Queen of Sheba received a powerful prize. You see, the prize she got, according to 1 Kings 10:13, shows us that vision is a result of the voids we have in our life. You see, there are some voids some of us have in our life. Some of us, when we were growing up, we might have had someone in the opposite sex say to us we were ugly, for example. And you know what happens? That creates a void which we then start having visions about. And those visions might be positive or negative. The Bible says we should cast down every wicked imagination that causes that is attempting to pull down Christ, that is attempting to not honor Christ. Why? Because vision is literally created in our elements of void. So I want to remind you guys today, I want to say to you guys today, don't be someone who loses the opportunity to develop your vision. Don't be someone who lacks the opportunity to develop your vision because you're stuck thinking about the valley. But instead be someone who embraces the vision, who replaces the negative vision so you can move in precision because you understand the valley is just for a season. Let me read something to you real quick, guys, before we wrap up. There were things the queen desired when she perceived and she paid. She received all that she desired. She got all that she required. I pray that this blesses you today. If you are joining me on Instagram, YouTube, Facebook, do all of the social media stuff. Like, subscribe, comment, whatever. Share your key takeaway. Share what was the big thing that you maybe heard or learned in today's session so that other people can learn from you as well. Because you've got value, which is the reason we're having this session, to help you understand that there is victory right inside of your current valley. If you're someone inside of the private room, fasten your seatbelt. We're going to open up for key takeaways, questions, and comments. If you're someone who's joining us on the social media platforms, we love you guys. This is one of our men's Bible and breakfast sessions that we decided to stream today. Hit subscribe on the YouTube and all of that stuff so you can make sure you're up to date with what we're doing next. And guys, if I can be of value or service to you, feel free to reach out to me, DM me, Instagram, etc. And then we'll go from there. With that being said, guys, good day. God bless. For those of you using a private room, fasten your seatbelt. We're going to open it up right now. Let's go.